and welcome to a slightly different video. Last weekend I was at a family gathering and I spent some time coding alongside my nephew. We had a really good time. He was getting into learning 3D graphics and what you could do with software when you started to code these things in a more sophisticated language or using 3D rendering libraries. And he thought it would be really fun to see what it would be like to try and rebuild a game like Minecraft. So I thought, that sounds really fun. We got into voxels and 3D coordinate spaces and clipping, all sorts of things that you need to understand to put these objects on screen and move them around, and camera angles, all those sorts of things. And then of course I got into thinking there's more to a game than just the visuals on the rendering screen. We've got to deal with the interactions, the workflows, all those sorts of things as well. And it occurred to me it could be fun to blend a little bit of work and pleasure. And so I started working on a version that's a little bit more feature rich. I was coding the graphics alongside him and having a lot of fun, but I got back home and thought the user interface over the top would be quite difficult as well. So I thought, let's see what it's like to put Apptrix into the space of a game. And so I'm introducing to you FyneCraft. I'm sure you can guess where the names come from. We're playing around with a voxel-based game. We're going to immerse ourselves in a 3D world, play around with blocks, all those sorts of things that probably are familiar to most people. But of course, from the very beginning, you realize there's things on screen that aren't the game world. For example, this welcome screen. I've got a simple image title, FyneCraft, and then some text that describes the input controls, and we have a button to start playing. And also this checkbox here that's turning on and off free movement, so the character could be either constrained like the real world physics, or they can move around freely. This is a front overlay on top of a game, but this is the real user interface, and we can work with it here in Apptrix. This play button, for example, is going to run the play game method when it's tapped. But I'm not liking how it looks. It's just a generic button, but we can raise this a little by using it as a high importance button, and that's going to pick the primary highlight color from our theme. And so it's going to be green as specified over here. Also, I think perhaps these control texts are a little bit hard to read. So along with this container, I'm going to add a background element, a semi-transparent rectangle. So I can just insert that there, and need to make it of a certain size. Let's try 120 by 80. Oh, that's definitely not big enough. 150 should do it there. And let's go for, oh, that's still too much, 180. And then I'm going to push it up the order so it draws underneath those. And I forgot to make it semi-transparent. So let's drag that alpha down. And there you go, we have our controls rendered on top of a black background. I've just realized obviously there's an alignment issue. I have a text element here that's empty and that's throwing things off. So I'll just delete that. And we have our controls centered in the space. Excellent. And I said this free movement checkbox controls things as well. It doesn't do anything, it's just an input, but you can see here it has an ID called free move, and the game is going to read that state when it launches to understand what to do. So let's save the game and play it, and we'll see the updates on our launch screen. And now you can see those updates. We've got our play button with our theme highlight color, we have the background color underneath the controls, and if we tick this free movement, which as you'll see is picking up the theme color as well, and tap play, we'll jump right into the game. And I turned free movement on, so we should be able to go up and down like that, and we can move around the game and see what's going on. Now that's great, but as you noticed, the user interface over the game itself was completely empty. So I thought we could look at that very briefly as well. I have this other window called Controls, and that's sitting on top of the main game surface instead of the title screen. So if we wanted to, we could add information here as well. I have a border container, and we could put some information at the top. So if I was to put a new container up there for some information, then into that we'll add text and a spacer and some more text. This container, it's on the left at the moment, but let's ask the border to put it on the top. The container itself should be a horizontal arrangement, so we'll set hbox. And now we've got our elements of text. I can set this to be white and bold, and we can have this to say coordinates, x, y, z. And on the other side, we could print out the frames per second. And at the bottom, I want to put our inventory. So we'll add another container again. That one's going to go towards the bottom. And inside it, I want to have another one, a grid inside with all of our items. So that will be the grid, which is inside a center, which will align it on the bottom. And this grid going along the bottom of the screen, I'll just make a series of rectangles at the moment, which will hold our inventory. So if I insert one there and another, 8 of them, I think. This rectangle will have a transparent fill, but an outline of 2 pixels, so that sounds good. And I set it as a minimum width. At the moment it's not visible because it's tiny. Let's make that 100 by 100. Oh, that's a little bit too big. Perhaps 80 for now. You can see it's arranged in a peculiar setup because the grid I've used is a 2-column grid. I could set it as 8 columns or 1 row. And you can see they're appearing along the bottom, but still a little bit large. You might be wondering why they're all the same size when I'm only changing the size of one, the minimum size of it as well, because minimum size is specifying how much space is really required, and a grid container is about aligning in a uniform manner. And so we've got all of these along here set up uniformly. I think that the fill is somehow picked up wrong, so we've got 0 transparent and 0 as a stroke, and we'll do the same for the others. And we could of course put a corner radius on and all those sorts of things as well. And to set up the game interacting with these rectangles, we would probably want to put in here inventory 1 and copy that text across so that elements can be dropped into them through the game. But rather than going through that copying and more, let's just have a quick check. We'll save this and run the game. We have our launch screen, and let's jump in. And now you can see we have our overlay. These rectangles along the bottom and the FPS and coordinates are at the top left and right. I haven't connected them to the game engine, but as you noticed, it's as simple as setting an ID, tying it to the code and having it update for us. That and the data connections, a separate topic. If you've seen my video before about data binding in Apptrix or in Fyne, you can see where that's going, but I'm not going to cover it right now. If you're interested in this game, you can reach out on one of our channels, or perhaps see if you can find me at one of the upcoming Go conferences or FyneConf. I'd love to chat more about it, but I'll leave this video here and I'll see you in another one. Thanks so much for joining me on this video. I hope it was entertaining. I've enjoyed adding a balance between work and play and seeing how the work projects that we use day to day can perhaps bring a little bit of ease of development into side projects and things like that. Do check out some of my other channels. You can find me on andy.xyz, see my previous videos at youtube.com, where you can also find Apptrix.ai videos that you might be interested in. Do consider sponsoring me at Patreon. This wouldn't be possible without kind donors like CMA Tranfield and James Hanlon. Thanks very much to you. And anybody else that would like to join and receive some of those amazing stickers, please consider it. And do consider heading along to Apptrix.ai in your browser as well, where you can find all that we're doing to help businesses and non-technical people build applications and potentially even games that they wouldn't have been able to do. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in another video or potentially at one of our events. You'll find a list of where I'm going to be attending at andy.xyz/speaking.